He was an idol to millions, a voice recognized from the very first notes, and the face of one of the most successful groups of the 21st century. But in March of 2015, the world froze. Zayn Malik announced his departure from One Direction. For fans, it was a shock. For the music industry, a catastrophe. And for the band itself, it was the beginning of the end. Behind the official statement, "I just want to live like a normal guy," there was so much more. The crushing weight of fame, mounting conflicts inside the group, creative disputes over music, and even darker stories that never made it past the curtain. These were tearing Zayn apart. His departure wasn't just a decision, it was an escape. In this film, we'll show you what fans were never meant to see. Secret negotiations with record labels, explosive fights during tours, and the truth of how the friendship of five boys who conquered the world collapsed into cold rivalry. March 25, 2015. Millions of One Direction fans across the globe broke down in tears. Zayn Malik, one of the five young men who had become a worldwide phenomenon, declared he was leaving the group. His words were simple: "I just want to be a normal 22-year-old, able to relax and have some private time." But to Directioners, it landed like a dagger to the heart. In London, girls held signs with his name. On social media, panic erupted. Within hours, the hashtag #PleaseComeBackZayn had generated millions of messages. Yet behind those carefully chosen words was a truth fans weren't supposed to know. To understand why Zayn Malik left, you have to go back to 2010, the year fate brought together five strangers. Harry Styles, Niall Horan, Louis Tomlinson, Liam Payne, and Zayn Malik all came to the British talent show, The X Factor, as solo performers. Each dreamed of a career on their own. But the judges saw something missing. Then, Nicole Scherzinger and Simon Cowell made a decision that would change pop culture forever. Put them together. That's how One Direction was born. The band that would later take over the world. From the first weeks, their charisma, their natural brotherhood on stage, their undeniable chemistry, it set them apart. The audience adored them instantly, even though they didn't win the competition. Losing the X Factor was only the beginning. Simon Cowell signed them to his label, and soon the world heard their first hit, "What Makes You Beautiful." The song shot to the top of the charts, becoming an anthem for a generation. Millions of teenagers suddenly had five ordinary boys turned overnight superstars to worship. But behind the glittering rise to fame, another reality existed. Endless tours, back-to-back interviews, fans screaming at airports, flashing cameras waiting outside their homes. For Harry or Niall, it was an adventure. They thrived in the spotlight. But for Zayn, it was different. He was quieter, more reserved, serious. His voice was among the strongest in the group, carrying those soaring high notes. But he never felt at ease in the center of attention. Fans and media quickly gave him a label: Mysterious Zayn. His silence and distant gaze only fueled the image. But behind the mystery was a young man struggling. On stage, he dazzled. Off stage, he was a shadow, slowly being consumed by the relentless pace. He hated interviews. He avoided parties. He often confessed he didn't feel like he truly belonged. To the outside world, he had everything: fame, fortune, millions of admirers. But Zayn saw the darker side of success. The fans who chased him down, the paparazzi who camped outside, the label demanding he smile and play the role of perfect pop star. Slowly, it was breaking him. From the very beginning, the cracks were there. Zayn had always loved R&B and hip-hop, wanting to explore new sounds, experiment, write his own lyrics. But One Direction was carefully packaged pop for teenagers, a product, and a product had to stay exactly as the fans expected. With each new album, the band grew bigger, but for Zayn, the cage only grew tighter. By 2014, the signs were impossible to ignore. He looked exhausted, withdrawn. During interviews, he often sat in silence while the others spoke. Rumors spread in tabloids about his health, about substance abuse. Most of it was exaggerated, but the truth was clear. Zayn was suffocating. The breaking point came during the world tour, when he suddenly dropped out of several shows, citing stress. Fans panicked. For the first time, they seriously wondered, what if he leaves? To millions, it seemed unimaginable. But for Zayn, the decision had already been made. He knew if he stayed, he would lose himself completely. It was the moment when the dream turned into a nightmare. The moment when everything he had once wished for became unbearable. And that moment led him to the decision that stunned the world. March 25, 2015, became a date carved into pop culture history. The official One Direction Facebook page posted a dry statement. Zayn Malik was leaving to be a normal 22-year-old who can relax and enjoy some private time. Just a few lines of text, but they hit like an earthquake. Fans sobbed at their screens. Twitter and Tumblr crashed under the weight of messages. Hashtags like "We love you Zayn" trended worldwide. Teenagers made videos of themselves crying, reading letters, begging him to come back. For millions, Zayn wasn't just a singer. He was part of their youth, part of their lives, part of their hearts. Inside the group, the impact was just as heavy. Harry, Louis, Liam, and Niall released statements saying they supported him. But between the lines, you could feel the shock, the confusion, the loss. They knew something like this might happen, but still hoped he'd hold on. At one concert, not long after his departure, Harry broke down crying on stage, and thousands of fans lifted signs reading, "Stay strong." It was the end of an era. The world of show business was shaken. Some critics claimed this was the end of One Direction. Others believed it might finally give the band a chance to evolve. But one thing was undeniable. This was a cultural earthquake, the kind of moment that could only be compared to the breakup of legendary bands from the past. Meanwhile, Zayn truly tried to live as ordinary. He retreated to his family, avoided cameras, and stayed away from public statements. But inside, contradictions boiled. There was relief the golden cage had finally swung open. Yet, with that relief, came fear. What comes next? Would he build a career of his own? Or would his name forever remain just the one who left One Direction? It was a day when millions of hearts shattered. A day when the dream of millions of fans collapsed before their eyes. But it was also the day a new chapter began, the chapter of Zayn Malik as a solo artist, a man brave enough to defy not only the industry, but himself. After leaving One Direction, Zayn vanished from the public eye for almost 6 months. No interviews, no red carpets, no stage appearances. It seemed he had truly chosen the life of a normal guy. But behind the curtain, something else was happening. Zayn was preparing his own musical breakthrough. By late 2015, the news exploded. Zayn had signed with RCA Records and was working on his first solo album. For millions of fans, it was a signal he hadn't abandoned music. In fact, he was about to come back louder than ever. And in March 2016, his debut album Mind of Mine was released, with its lead single Pillow Talk. The track became an instant sensation. Within a day, the video racked up tens of millions of views. The song shot straight to the top of the US and UK charts. It was a moment of triumph. Zayn proved he was never just the fifth member. He could be a star on his own. But with success came new conflict. His relationships with former bandmates quickly soured, most publicly with Louis Tomlinson, in a heated Twitter feud. What began as teasing escalated into an open clash. Fans split into sides, some accusing Zayn of betrayal, others defending his right to seek his own path. The feud fueled the frenzy. Tabloids spoke of a war between former brothers. Fan forums exploded, but Zayn seemed almost to embrace the chaos. In one interview, he declared, "In One Direction, I didn't feel like myself. Now I can finally make the music that reflects who I am." And indeed, his music was different. Instead of stadium-ready pop anthems, he dove into moody R&B, sultry ballads, and deeply personal lyrics. It was intimate, raw, sometimes painfully revealing. Many One Direction fans struggled to adjust, but millions of new listeners saw Zayn not as a teen idol, but as an artist in his own right. This was proof. He could not only survive outside the band, he could soar. But with new fame came old demons, anxiety, industry pressure, and the ghost of his past that never seemed to let go. And then came the love story that would define the next chapter of his life. Zayn and supermodel Gigi Hadid. Their romance began in late 2015, when paparazzi first spotted them together. At first, whispers suggested it was a publicity stunt, a mutually beneficial arrangement. Zayn needed to solidify his image as a solo superstar, Gigi to strengthen her brand in the fashion world. But soon, it was clear there was real chemistry. Their appearance together in the Pillow Talk music video was a cultural explosion. Fans obsessed over their kisses on screen and off, crowning them the perfect millennial couple. They graced the Met Gala, fronted magazine covers, and starred in fashion campaigns. To the public, they were untouchable glamour incarnate. Gigi seemed to bring stability to Zayn's turbulent world, while he revealed a softer, more vulnerable side of her. But beneath the perfect facade, storms brewed. Zayn's battles with anxiety, with industry pressure, with himself, did not vanish. His solo tours were postponed multiple times officially due to health reasons. Though whispers of panic attacks and depression filled headlines, Gigi carried her own career while trying to be his anchor. In 2020, their love took on a new dimension, the birth of their daughter Kai. For many, it was shocking Zayn, the enigmatic rebel, stepping into fatherhood. He admitted it changed everything. "Now I have a reason to wake up every morning." Fans hoped this was the beginning of a new, grounded era. But in 2021, scandal erupted. Reports emerged of a clash between Zayn and Gigi's mother, Yolanda Hadid. Accusations of aggression surfaced. Zayn denied them, but the fallout was devastating. He was handed probation, anger management courses, and, most painfully, the breakup of his relationship with Gigi. Fans were stunned. Once again, Zayn's name made headlines not for his music, but for chaos. Though he remains in his daughter's life, his image was scarred. The fairy tale was over. And once again, his demons had caught up with him. Today, the name Zayn Malik carries a different weight. Once, he was the mysterious one in the world's biggest boy band. Then, the rebel who shocked the industry with Pillow Talk. Now, he is the man who has walked through fire fame, scandals, heartbreak, and still searches for himself. After his breakup with Gigi and a storm of headlines, Zayn deliberately stepped back from the spotlight. Fewer interviews, rare social appearances. His focus narrowed to one thing: his daughter. His social media grew quiet, his posts careful and reflective. He no longer played the role of the tabloid star. He was a man searching for balance and peace. Musically, Zayn never disappeared. His songs have grown deeper, more personal, less polished pop glamour, more raw honesty. He no longer chases chart domination. Instead, he creates for himself. And maybe that's why his fans remain loyal, because they see not a flawless idol, but a flawed, real human being. Rumors sometimes swirl of a grand comeback tour. Fans dream of hearing his voice live again, a voice still considered one of the most unique of his generation. But Zayn doesn't rush. He says he has learned the cost of pressure and speed. Now he wants to move at his own pace, slowly, but truthfully. The story of Zayn Malik is more than fame and downfall. It's the story of survival, of a man who walked away from the world's biggest band, who fought against anxiety, betrayal, the cruelty of the press, and still stands. Today, Zayn is no longer just the guy from One Direction. He is a man who endured the fire of fame and held on to the two things that matter most: his music and his daughter. Perhaps that quiet, honest life will be his greatest victory. He began as a boy from Bradford who dreamed of music. Fate gave him everything: money, fame, millions of fans, songs that defined an era. But behind the dream was a cost only he could see. Zayn Malik walked through the storm and emerged scarred but standing. And maybe that is the legacy that will outlast all the noise. Not just the fame, not just the scandals, but the courage to be himself. And for that, he will always be remembered. Zayn's departure was not just news. It was an event that split millions of teenagers around the world into a before and after. Social media literally exploded. Twitter showed for the first time the true power of fan communities. The hashtags #WeMissYouZayn and #AlwaysInOurHearts reached global trends within hours and remained there for weeks. Tumblr was filled with thousands of posts, drawings, fanfics, and letters in support of Zayn. Fans organized rallies all over the world. In London, New York, Manila, Buenos Aires, and Tokyo, teenagers gathered in squares with posters and pictures of Zayn, sang his parts from One Direction songs, and uploaded videos online. For many, this was not just disappointment in a star, it felt like the collapse of a teenage dream. Psychologists even noted the so-called One Direction effect. Thousands of teenagers sought help because they could not cope with their emotions. To them, Zayn was not only a musician, but also a symbol of hope, that ordinary boys could achieve anything. His departure was seen as betrayal, as the loss of someone close. Yet at the same time, this drama sparked a new wave of creativity. YouTube filled up with reaction videos to Zayn's departure, millions of views, hundreds of thousands of tearful confessions. Many young fans began writing their own music, drawing and creating blogs. In some sense, Zayn's exit inspired an entire generation to express themselves. The entertainment industry also reacted. Labels, promoters, and producers saw the power of a fan base and began building new projects with that kind of audience engagement in mind. One could say that One Direction and their fans laid the foundation for how modern pop stars and their fan armies operate today. Thus, Zayn's departure was not only a personal drama for the band, but also a cultural event of global scale. It was the moment when the whole world realized, in the 21st century, fans are not just listeners, they are a force capable of influencing the industry and the fate of artists. Zayn's departure was not just news. It was an event that divided millions of teenagers across the world into a before and an after. Social media literally exploded. Twitter revealed, for the very first time, the true power of fan communities. Hashtags like #WeMissYouZayn and #AlwaysInOurHearts trended globally within hours and stayed at the top for weeks. Tumblr was flooded with thousands of posts, drawings, fanfics, and heartfelt letters dedicated to Zayn. Fans organized demonstrations across the globe. In London, New York, Manila, Buenos Aires, and Tokyo, teenagers gathered in city squares holding posters and photographs of Zayn, singing his parts from One Direction songs, and uploading emotional videos online. For many, it was not just disappointment in a star. It felt like the collapse of their teenage dream. Psychologists even spoke of the so-called One Direction effect. Thousands of teenagers were seeking help because they could not cope with the overwhelming emotions. To them, Zayn was not only a musician, but also a symbol of belief that ordinary boys can achieve anything. His departure felt like betrayal, like losing someone close. Yet at the same time, this drama sparked a new wave of creativity. YouTube, filled with reaction videos to Zayn's departure, millions of views, hundreds of thousands of tearful confessions. Many young fans began writing their own music, drawing, creating blogs, and finding their own voices. In a sense, Zayn's exit gave an entire generation a push to express themselves. The music industry, too, took notice. Labels, promoters, and producers realized the immense power of a devoted fan base and started building new projects designed to harness the same level of audience engagement. One could argue that it was One Direction and their fans who laid the foundation for the way modern pop stars and their fan armies operate today. Thus, Zayn's departure became not only a personal drama for the group, but also a cultural event of global scale. It was the moment when the entire world understood. In the 21st century, fans are not just listeners. They are a force capable of shaping the industry and changing the destiny of artists.